Hi guys, it's Jake here, chilling out. It's Wee Wednesday. I've got the Sanrenmu 4108 today. Mine is the gray, dark, smoky kind of version. It comes in several other colors. I think GearBest has it only in 2 colors right now. This is a wee little knife that's got these hex-shaped holes in the handle there. It does have a pocket clip. Drop point kind of blade. It's not a Warncliffe because it doesn't have a flat blade. It's got a belly. A funny looking smile shaped kind of hole right there. It's a really nice little knife. It's got a saber grind. Fits 2 and a tiny bit of fingers on the handle. Pinch grip is probably the best thing for it. It's a very cool little Wee Wednesday knife. I like this thing an awful lot. I've been carrying it quite a bit lately. I've added the split ring on the back myself, and I'll talk more about that later on. So if you're interested in a nice Wee Wednesday kind of knife for any day of the week, stick around for the full review. I don't normally do size comparisons, but there's the knife deployed next to a regular Bic pen. Here's a Sanrenmu 7010, formerly known as the 710. So if we move those pivots lined up with one another, that's how much smaller it is. How does it look next to a Buck 110? There you go. This is just a wee little knife, isn't it? I've been carrying this guy lately a little bit, and that's why I've got some marks on the bronze, and it's a little discolored. I got to clean that guy up again. I really do like the Buck 110 a lot. So yeah, it's a tiny little knife, very comfortable in the hand to use for tiny knife kind of tasks. I prefer it as a keychain knife. That's why I put the split ring on the back. It's really good for a split ring. I'm going to close it up first here. It's a slip joint. It's really good for a split ring because it's got the lanyard hole. So you don't have to go through a thick layer to get a little key ring on it. Split rings are very tricky to sometimes get on it if you've got the full thickness of the little knife to have to go through. You often have to bend them weird and then they don't close all the way, or you have to put a bigger split ring on there than you want. There is a danger with split rings when you're using them on a knife like this, and that is if the split ring goes over like this, and then you close the blade, and you will nick the edge of your blade that way pretty good if it slams on there. So you do have to be careful if you choose to use a split ring method to carry this knife on a keychain. And of course, I take the pocket clip off when I carry it that way. I've left it on now because that's how it comes, and I want to show that to you. So here we go. Let's talk about all the different little specs on here. Of course, drop point, swedge, saber grind, which is a flat grind. This one goes about halfway up, right around a centimeter, which is, 3/8 of an inch, a little over, actually, it's probably closer to half an inch, but not quite, from the grind till where it ends. You've got aluminum handle scales. This knife is a Windrunner design. Put the name on the handle scale instead of on the blade, where it's usually up there on the ricasso. There's Sanrenmu's logo in Chinese, and there's the model 4108 SUX-LK. One really cool thing that one cool thing that they did on this knife, on the handle scales, take a look at this shape that they put into this aluminum there. That's a wrench. And it looks like they're wrenching on that pivot. That's just like a neat little touch that adds a tiny bit of something special to this knife. I guess it's a good knife for somebody, a plumber or somebody, if you've got somebody like that in your life and you want to give them a little gift maybe. Let's go through the types of materials. The steel is 8CR13 MOV, budget Chinese steel. And it's an adequate steel for this kind of application. It works quite well. Hardness of around 57, satin finish. I forgot to mention before, it does have a sharpness choil a little budget knife that they put a little Spanish choil in right there, sharpener's choil. I keep talking about sharpener's choils. I really like them because when I go to sharpen this knife, I'm not going to end up, grinding on the ricasso or grinding up on the plunge line and messing it up and making it look stupid. I already talked about that. It's aluminum and it's a spring joint, and you can see this spring move up and down when I open and close the blade. And that's what holds it closed. It's got a very strong spring. It wants to pull closed all the time. You have to pull a fair bit, and that same spring strength holds it open when you have to push it quite hard to start to close it, which is a good thing. There's no detent halfway through. So it's a very solid open spring, and I like it. It's a good, safe spring joint, slip joint kind of construction with that spring in there. You've got some jimping on the spring spacer up here, but not on the handle scales. That does a tiny little bit for when you're holding it with your thumb there. It gives you a little bit extra purchase. And, that's always a good thing to get a little extra purchase on a little knife when you're using it. The pocket clip is only right side tip down. No option to put it on the left side or tip up or anything. It doesn't really matter on a knife this size. Like I said, I take that off and don't use it anyway. When you open the knife, there's no blade play. Back side to side, there is up and down, by the way. Look at that. It just really loose up and down. Just kidding. I already mentioned before that spring's really good. When the knife is closed, the alignment is very good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Now let's talk about the sizes of everything that we've got here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit to do that. The cutting edge is 4.54 centimeters, which is 1.79 inches. The blade length, so from the end of the handle to the tip of the blade, it's 4.71 centimeters, which is 1.85 inches. Blade thickness is 2.02 millimeters, which is 0.0795 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind is 0.4 millimeters, which is perfect for a knife this size. Really good, strong enough, thick enough to be strong enough, and thin enough to still cut really well. That's 0.016 inches. Handle length, and I measured from the aluminum all the way to the end of the back spring where the lanyard hole ends right there. 7.12 centimeters, which is 2.8 inches. And the grip area, so behind this little bit of a guard here to the end of the handle, is 5.56 centimeters, 2.19 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, is 0.66 centimeters, which is 0.26 inches. So right around a quarter of an inch, almost exactly a quarter of an inch, just a tiny bit over that. Total length of this knife when it is open is 11.76 centimeters, so 11 3/4 centimeters, which is 4.63 inches. It only weighs 28 grams, which is right around an ounce. My scale that I use doesn't go super precise, so 26 grams isn't exactly an ounce, but it rounds off to an ounce. Hopefully I'm going to get a more precise scale pretty soon. We'll see. So how much does this knife cost? Well, at GearBest, which is where I bought it, and I bought this from my own shekels, it's $6.59 US, and you have to add just around $2 shipping to that. In Canadian dollars, it's $8.12, and you have to add just under $3 shipping to that. So, it's around $11 Canadian. It's around $9 US when you add in the shipping. In euros, it's 5.52. In UK pounds, it's 4.89 plus shipping for the euros and pounds there. Fit and finish, I like this knife. It's excellent. It's designed really well. It looks really good. The color is a really nice deep gray kind of, almost a green kind of gray color. I like it a lot, an awful lot. It looks really, really nice. It fits nice in the hand. I like how it's got this thumb kind of spot right there. So you can put your thumb back there and do some harder work, and it just sort of fits in that spot quite well. When you want to do this pinch kind of grind, that works really well. When you want to put your thumb up here and cut that way, that works quite well. And you can see my 2 fingers and my 3rd finger gets a decent amount of purchase back there. I have large hands right on the borderline of extra large. So sometimes I buy extra large gloves, sometimes I buy large. Really depends on the manufacturer. Those are American kind of sizes. I think that's around 10 or 11 in the Europe kind of size numbers. Everything's Torx, so if you want to take it apart, that's easy enough to do. I don't like to take apart my tiny slip joints. I've just had some trouble sometimes putting them back together. So I don't take it apart unless I need to. It's easy enough when you put the blade halfway open to use a needle tip oiler and just get a little oil into that pivot, and you should be fine, good to go with that. Pros and cons, it's a very good keychain knife. 1 ounce, no problem at all to add to your keychain. Not a big weight to add. That's like 2 keys. Like a key is usually around half an ounce. It's maybe a little bit less. So 2 or 3 keys is all that this is. Depending on the size of your key, it's probably 1 automotive key, and maybe 2 or 3 house keys. It really depends. I like the strong spring for the slip joint. I reiterate that. The styling is cool. I like that wrench shape on there. The sharpener's choil is a really good touch. That's a good thing. Steel choice isn't bad, not a problem for me. I don't consider 8CR13 MOV a bad thing for a small knife like this, especially at the price range that it's at. And I really like how the lanyard hole comes back here, and it's just all by itself in that piece of steel that's just around 2 millimeters thick. Great for putting a split ring on. Fits in the pocket really well too. If you do want to use it with a pocket clip, I'll show you that. So there you go. It, no problem there. You can use it in your coin pocket if you want to, if you've got one. You got a little bit, peeking out there. Not a big deal. It's a small enough knife that it's not going to scare off most people. I tend to try to use knives like this in public if it can do the job that I need it to do. And if I can't, then I pull out a larger knife. And if that knife doesn't do the trick, I pull out an even bigger knife. I very often have 3 knives if you count the little keychain knife. I know that's a little bit overkill, and not all of you are going to do it. Maybe most of you might not do that, but that's generally what I carry if I've got my keys with me. Otherwise, it's just those 2 knives. So what's this feature that I think is kind of cool? Look at that. Those are hex holes, and they are precise sizes in metric. They are 4, 5, and 6 millimeters. And they say on their website that they're actually functional. They're not quite as thick as the handle scale is in terms of how it's going to grab onto a nut. And that's because it's got that set in kind of, there's a recessed area around it. Maybe if I move it a little closer, you can see it better. There you go. So you can get that onto a nut, and you can actually turn a nut with it. I don't know if I've got one that's quite the right size. No, that's smaller than 5 millimeter. Yeah, I don't have a nut handy to use that on. It's not very common that you see nuts that small, but it would work if you needed it to. But it's a kind of cool factor. It's not really that much of a actual nut driver. It's not designed to actually be playing that role, but it could do it in a pinch if you needed it to. Let's cut some things with this. I've got some foam here. This is some insulator foam for copper plumbing lines in most houses. So it can cut that kind of stuff very easily, no problem at all. What else can we try to cut? Let's try to cut some paracord. Here's 2 paracord bands, and it just flies right through that, no problem. And you can cut through this just by pressing down, and you get through. A little bit of a wiggle. It's a little hard to get your finger down that far, or you can just slice right through it. How well does it cut regular copy or print paper? it's pretty good. It's not doing a great job right now. I've carried it for quite a while. I've sort of been fighting with the idea, I've been debating the idea. I've been wanting to show you how sharp it is from the factory, but I don't really care how sharp a knife is from the factory, to be honest with you. And I've said this a few times because I'm going to sharpen this knife. And it's a knife that's easy to sharpen because you got a flat area on the spine of this knife. So it works fine with those systems that you clamp on to the knife and sharpen it that way. And other ways of sharpening, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, this knife didn't come super sharp from the factory, but you can see it's sharp enough to do an okay cutting job on paper. It's not bad. It's just not very good yet. It will be very good when I'm done sharpening it. So there you go, a wee Wednesday kind of knife. It's a nice little EDC choice if you like to carry a key on your keychain, or you just want something really small in your pocket. It works just fine as a pocket dropper as well. If I didn't sound too excited today, that's because my pain levels are just through the roof right now. Storm that just came through with that blizzard, kind of nasty. But it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Please do those things if you feel that that's something you want to do. Even if you don't like the knife, if you think the video is worth a like, click that thumbs up. And I appreciate it very, very much. Remember, guys, always cut towards your pal, your chum, your buddy, not your thumb.